Alright, so here I am in AutoCAD. I hate having to do it this way, but I don't have a screensaver on this laptop. So here's Tycho Brahe's arrangement of the solar system. Here's the moon's orbit, the sun's orbit, that's Venus's orbit, that's Mercury's orbit, and of course the red is the orbit of Mars. I did not include Jupiter and Saturn at this time. Now this is a scale drawing. It's in metric, so let's zoom in and we can see that there is indeed Earth there. I can go and get the sun so we can see this is the scale, Tycho scale. And there you can see the relationship of Earth to the Sun in Tycho's model, the relationship of the Moon's orbit to the Sun. The standard model has the Sun larger, larger than the orbit of the Moon. And here we can bring in the Moon. There you can see the proportionality of the Moon to the Earth is exactly the way it has always been from Ptolemy, Hipparchus, whoever. And actually the Sun was also in this proportion too until the Royal Society came in and had to push everything out to make the Sun huge so that the mass would be equal to what Newton says it is, because they assigned a mass or a density to the Sun of water, who knows why, and so that didn't have enough density, so they had to make the Sun far, far away so it would get larger and larger and larger. But as you can see, this is the real scale. You can see that the Earth is about 6 times smaller in diameter. You can see that Earth is about 6 times smaller in diameter than the Sun. But let me get that finished real quick. So it's about 5.8 times. And so the way that they actually did it in the spherical doctrine was to use volume. So it's 5.8 times larger than Earth, but in volume it's 196 times larger than Earth. Now the Sun is exactly 10,000 times larger than the Moon in volume. And these proportionalities are very well documented in Tycho's book and Astronomia Danica. There's the commonly shown Tychonian arrangement that we know from Tycho's work and other recent works. I think this is actually on the cover of a recent work. Now, let's now see the modern day AU, and what I'm going to show you, you got to remember this. The AU is the distance between Earth in the modern setup. That would be this orbit would be the orbit of the Earth and the Moon. But we're going to stick with Tycho's model, the geocentric model, the correct model. And this is the AU, the distance from here, the center, out to the orbit of the Sun. And bear in mind, I can't scale this complete drawing all the way up because the Earth and the Moon are correctly sized. Earth is correct, the Moon's orbit is correct. So they have to remain the same, but what must be scaled up is the orbits of the other planets. So let's take a look and see how that looks. Now, there you go. Now, do you see any discrepancy between the two models besides them being much larger? Please note that it is virtually impossible to see the orbit of the moon is simply a dot. Now let me zoom in to make sure you don't think that I'm trying to sell you some bunk here. There you go. And all I've got to do is regen that so it's a circle. You can see there's the Earth. There's the orbit of the moon. And once you zoom out, it's impossible to see the orbit of the moon. Maybe I've got, oh yeah, I've got all the suns up here. Now let's take a look at the, I'll just copy this sun down and we'll put it here, and relative to the the orbit of the moon. There you go. The sun in the modern standard astronomy is what? Almost, what is it? 2 times the size of the moon's orbit? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Twice the diameter of the moon's orbit. I mean, for crying out loud, give me a break. So that's how big the sun needed to be to keep Newton's quote-unquote law applicable, because the mass needed to grow to a certain size, and they just did this geometrically. But they had to keep the sun, because anybody can look in the sky and put their thumb up in front of their eyes and see that the Earth, and see that the sun is half a degree in diameter, and we know from eclipses that has to be the case. So they had to keep these angles in line, so when they needed to pull the when they needed to scale the sun up and still maintain a half a degree in visual diameter, that's how they derived the quote-unquote parallax of the sun. That's why they needed to invoke the ridiculous and farcical hoax of the Venus transit, which is utter nonsense. You can't find a single demonstration of how that actually even works anywhere, and if you do, please post a comment, and don't show me these things. I've seen them on YouTube. They just start with pre-assumptions. They already know what the speed of the Earth is, blah blah blah. It's just all, it starts with pre-assumptions. You can't, that tells you nothing. Not only that, if the Earth is moving around the sun, and the Venus transit model doesn't even make any sense if it's moving at 107,000 kilometers per hour. I mean, think, people, one more time. As you can see, which is very much in line with the diagram Tycho drew, clearly you can see the orbit of the moon. And this proportionality has to be in these ratios, otherwise it's like a man with a, how is this Earth is 23,500 times distant from its own diameter. It doesn't even make sense. How would that orbit anything? I mean, it's like a grain of dust clinging to your clothes or something. It's how's there going to be any perturbations on this? However, when you see that, you can clearly see that the mass is associated with the 3 largest bodies in the solar system: the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon.